What's up, everybody? It's the Best Spot Kid Smooth, and I'm back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about Xbox and FPS Boost as they added another 13 games to the library of games that support FPS Boost. And the trick here, last month it was Bethesda games. This month it is a handful of EA games, and all these games are available in EA Play or in Game Pass of some sort. So we're going to talk about these games and the enhancements that they're getting. Now, these enhancements are pretty large. Now, the caveat, man, like select games from the Bethesda titles, like, I think it was Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. They reduced their resolutions to achieve 60 frames per second when you selected to use FPS boost on those games. So in those games, the Xbox will naturally toggle it off because they assume you want better visuals, and then you'll have the option to toggle it on. So with this in mind, a lot of the games here are going to practice the same thing. So this should be all these games should be live as of today. First, we're gonna name a list of all these games that are just supporting FPS boosts. So right now we got Battlefield 1, 120 frames per second. It is toggled off by default on Xbox Series X. Now, Battlefield 1, I believe, is it 2017's game? 2018? I know it's like one from 20. It's an Xbox One X era games, but I think Battlefield 1 was when they went back to World War 1. That now has the ability, it was already 60 frames per second. It was a choppy 60 frames per second on the One X and the One, but if you play it currently on the Series X, it's a nice clean 4K 60 game currently. It's currently 4K 60. You toggle 120 FPS boost on, you're gonna get, I believe it's gonna go down to 1080p, 120 frames per second. Battlefield 4, the original, the launch title for the Xbox One and PS4, that game is now 120 frames per second on the Xbox Series X and S. Is not going to reduce the resolution because the resolution was already, I think, like 720p. So there's no resolution reduction needed. I think they need to come up with some sort of resolution boost for that game. Because I would go through the campaign if I could, because I'd never beaten the campaign of that game because back in the day it was broken. You got Battlefield 5, which is the last one that came out. Now, this one, like I said, if you play it now, it's 4K 60 currently on your Xbox Series X. The FPS boost option to bring it to 120 frames per second is it will reduce the resolution to 1080p. Now, for Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1, there is no FPS boost option for the Xbox Series S. So, and I guess because it takes too much of a resolution hit, and then the Series S is already running that game at I think 900p and 60 frames per second. So there's that. So I don't know why that's the case, but quite a few of these games, the Series S won't get to tap into that FPS boost. But it from what it appears to be, it looks like it's only the games that impact that has to take a resolution hit to get those frame rates. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare. This is the first one. This one takes no hit to resolution at all. It's 120 frames per second, but I think this is all, that's a pre-Xbox One X era, so I think that's like 1080p. So it's 1080p 120 across the board for both games. Plants vs. Zombie 2 Neighborhoodville. That's the newest one that is has like 4K mode and all that other stuff. So the resolution, there is going to be a resolution drop on the Series X. There's no resolution drop on the Series S. So effectively, they're playing the same version. Garden Warfare 2, 120 frames on both, no resolution drop. Sea of Solitude's getting boosted to 60 frames per second. No resolution hit at all. Sea of Solitude is like a 1X era game. So Star Wars Battlefront, 120 frames per second, no reduction to resolution, but infamously, that game's 720p regardless. So that's a game that needs a resolution boost, but they did double up the frame rate on that one. So Battlefront 1 is 120 frames per second on both the Series X and S. However, Battlefront 2, 120 frame boosted on the Xbox Series X version, not for the Xbox Series S. and it will reduce the resolution to 1080p as it's not toggled on by default. That is the check. You see these squares, not these squares, these check marks. The check marks means that it's not toggled on by default. So that means if you have to go and toggle it on, that means it's going to reduce the resolution. So what they do is the Xbox is naturally prioritizing the resolution for you, unless you want the FPS boost. And then, like I said, there are a handful of games where the resolution is not impacted at all. But Battlefront 2, it was my favorite one. It looks great on the Xbox Series X as is, 4K 60, no drops. And now if you want to play that at 120 frames, you could. It's just going to drop the resolution to 1080p. Titanfall 1, one of my almost qualifies as one of the game of the generations last year for the Xbox One. One of my favorite launch window games. I spent a whole lot of time in Titanfall 1. 120 frames per second. Titanfall 2, the sequel, also 120 frames per second on both the Series X and Series S. However, it will take a resolution hit to 1080p. Unravel 2, 120 frames per second. And then the rest of the games we already know about: Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Prey. But this is just another grown list. This adds another, because a majority of these games, actually all these games with the exception of Sea of Solitude, all pretty much prioritize 120 frames per second. So there was only one 60 FPS boosted update. So this adds another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games added to 120 frames games on Xbox Series X. That was already sitting at somewhere at 35. Now it's in the 40s. That's another games added. The gap has only widened of games that are available to be played at 120 frames per second and 60 frames per second versus the PS5, which are playing these same games at their regular native frame rates, which range from 30 to 60. And that's just the point I just wanted to make. But that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoy. What's the first game you're going to play after this FPS boost update? I'm probably going to boot up, Titanfall, Mirror's Edge, maybe some Battlefield. I'm actually download quite a few of these games. But that's the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Xbox is the best box, and I am the best bot. Good night or good morning if you're on the other side of the globe. We're out of here. Peace.